Hello friends, in this video we are going to discuss the receipts of the union government. That means we are going to discuss from what all sources the union government mobilizes receipts or say revenue that is used in the common language from different sources. And so the title of this topic, of the today's presentation is Receipts of the Union Government. Now, before we get into the detailed discussion on the receipts of the union government, we should know some concepts. And let us discuss those concepts. So, first, we should discuss the difference between a tax and a fee. And most of the time, people think that tax and fees are same, but these are not the same things. Now, coming to the tax, tax is a compulsory payment. Tax is a compulsory payment by the citizen of a country without any direct quid pro quo. And that means when we pay a tax, we do not expect anything directly in return. That means if Mr. X pays 100 rupees and Mr. Y pays 200 rupees, Mr. X cannot expect 100 rupees benefit in return. Similarly, Mr. Y, who has paid 200 rupees, cannot expect 200 rupees benefit in return from the government. The government may give benefits or say whatever tax is collected from the people is basically spent for the welfare of the people. But we do not expect anything directly in return. So that's why it is called tax is a compulsory payment by the citizen of a country without any direct quid pro quo. And on the other hand, when we say a fee is imposed by the government for a specific facility or service being provided or rendered. So, for example, if you are going to a park, you are paying a fee because if you do not pay the fee, you will not be able to enter into the park. So, uh, so in case of a fee, if you pay the money, then only you get the benefit. Otherwise, you do not get. But on the other hand, in case of tax, tax is a compulsory payment if you are eligible only. Suppose your income is less than what is the taxable income. Say what is say if your income is less than the taxable limit, then you do not have to pay any tax. So there are many people who do not pay any tax, but they still get the public goods from the government. So, for example, we get the benefit of say drinking water. We are all protected equally by the national defense. So there are many other examples that we can give. That means tax is a okay. Again, I am repeating this. Tax is a compulsory payment by the citizen of a country without any direct quid pro quo. But on the other hand, in case of a fee, you pay the fee for a specific facility or a service being provided or rendered by some agency. So that is the difference between a tax and a fee. Then comes when we say tax, taxes are of two types. One is direct tax and other is indirect tax. Now, when we say direct tax, in case of direct tax, the burden cannot be shifted to the by the taxpayer to somebody else. Suppose no, the government imposes a tax on Mr. X 100 rupees, then Mr. X will have to pay that 100 rupees. So Mr. X cannot transfer this burden to Mr. Y. But in case of indirect tax, if tax is imposed on Mr. X, that can be transferred to Mr. Y. So ultimately, the tax is imposed on X, but the the tax is paid by Mr. Y. That is when it is said that in case of indirect tax, the burden of the tax can be shifted by the taxpayer to somebody else. Or you can say that indirect tax is a levy where the incidence and impact of the taxation tax do not fall on the same entity. So that is a difference. That means in case of direct tax, the person on whom the tax is imposed has to pay the tax. But in case of indirect tax, so the tax is imposed on somebody, but the tax is paid by somebody else. So we can take some examples. Now, in case of direct tax, the examples are income tax or say salary. Basically, whatever salary you are earning, you have to pay tax. similar taxes on the profits, and taxes on the individuals or taxes on the corporation. So these are basically the direct taxes, because if you are earning 1 lakh rupees, some, of course, if you earn 1 lakh rupees, then you don't have to pay tax, direct tax. But suppose your income, suppose government decides that no, the people who earn more than 5 lakh rupees will have to pay tax, then you have to pay tax. So you cannot transfer this to somebody else. So there is the direct taxes are largely on the income or the wealth. Now the examples are income tax, corporation tax, then property tax, inheritance tax, gift tax. So these are the examples of direct tax. In case of indirect tax, the examples are the custom duty, import duty, central excise, service tax, value-added tax, so and so on. So, for example, we can take an example of this custom duty. Suppose you are importing a car from, say, Germany. Then, so basically, the person who is buying the car is not importing the car. The one dealer basically imports the car from Germany. Now, the government of India imposes the tax on the dealer. So the dealer pays the tax to the government, but ultimately the dealer collects that entire amount of tax from the person who buys that car. Similarly, when you go to a beauty parlor, now if it is a branded, it is a branded beauty parlor, then you have to pay a huge amount of tax. That means, for example, you are going to Naturals or Habib, and then you are dressing your hair, and then you are getting a good facial or massage, and then you pay, say, 1,000 rupees, and or even more than that. Now you will see that the beauty parlor is basically collecting the tax from you, and but the tax is paid by that beauty parlor agency to the government. So that means tax is imposed on somebody, some entity, but the tax is ultimately paid by somebody else. So that is the difference between direct and indirect tax. Now we should know what is a cess, because very often we hear the word cess and surcharge. Now what is a cess? Cess, no, the provision for cess is described in Article 270 of the Indian Constitution. Now, what is a cess? Cess is basically cess may be in the nature of a tax or a fee, but it is imposed for a specific purpose as identified in the charging legislation. So cesses are named after identified the purpose. So for example, we hear about education cess, we hear about say GST compensation cess. Similarly, we are hearing, say, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan cess. Similarly, there are different cess for a specific purpose. Government imposes a tax. Government imposes an additional levy on the people, and that so whatever revenue is collected from this cess, now that will be going to, of course, the Consolidated Fund of India, but that money will be spent only for a specific purpose. That money cannot be spent for any public good. So that is the difference between a tax and cess. So in case of a tax, that money goes to Consolidated Fund of India, but that money will be spent for any purpose, for any general purpose. But cess, whatever levy is collected, that will be spent only for that specific purpose. So for example, I told you Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan cess, okay, or say GST compensation cess. So like that, there are different specific purpose cesses imposed by the government of India. Similarly, you might have heard that when we had Kargil war, then we have government imposed also the wars, Kargil war cess. So for specific purposes, the government imposes cess from time to time. Now, what is a surcharge? Surcharge is dealt again in Article 271 of the Constitution, and surcharge is a tax on tax. So it is a tax on tax imposed for the purpose of the union. And we can take the example that suppose, actually, if you look at the present income tax regime, then we can give the example that if some individual has income more than 1 crore uh, per annum, then he or she will have to pay an extra sum amounting to 15% of their income tax under Section 3A of the Finance Act 2017. So that is a surcharge. That means say people who have income above 10 lakh, who had income above 10 lakh, had to pay 30% of tax. But then if you are earning more than 1 crore, then you will have to pay 50% of their income as additional tax. That is a surcharge. So this is over and above. So this is a tax on tax. That means after 1 crore, whatever you are earning, then that will you are paying 30 percentage, but another 15% of that 30 percentage will be collected as surcharge. So now if again we discuss now what will be the difference between a cess and a surcharge. In case of a cess is collected for a specific purpose. Of course, again it is calculated on the tax. So for example, if we are talking about say service garbage and cess, then suppose somebody is now paying say 1,000 rupees tax, then and if it is a service garbage and cess is 3%, then 3% of 1,000 rupees is basically going as cess. But in case of surcharge, again, of course, it is also a tax on tax. That means, suppose your income is more than a crore, then that means you are paying that 30% of tax. But then on your income above 1 crore, you will have to pay 15 percentage of that 30 percentage that you are paying. So it is a tax on tax. And remember, both cess and surcharges are going to a consolidated fund of India, but these both cesses and surcharges are not going to the divisible pool, or that means this will not be shared among the states. All the proceeds of that is coming from the cess and surcharge will be retained by the government of India. Cess is spent for a specific purpose, but surcharge is not spent for any specific purpose. It goes to this will be spent for general purpose. Now, coming to the constitutional provision for the taxes of the government of India. Now, first of all, seventh schedule of the Constitution basically has listed the powers of the union government, which we call as union list. You know that in seventh schedule we have union list, we have state list, then we have concurrent list. That means the powers of the union government, powers of the state government, and powers which are shared among both states and center together. And you know that residential power, all the residual powers go to the union government. That means if nothing is mentioned in the constitution, then that power is basically entrusted upon the union government. So now if when we look at the taxes of the union government, we'll have to look at the union list. That means schedule 7th union list. If you check, then you will find all the powers of the union government. That means the responsibility of the union government and also the tax mobilizing power of the union government. Now, Article 265 of the Constitution says that no tax shall be levied or collected except by the authority of the law. That means if you are going to impose any tax, then that has to be backed by some legislation. That means if you are imposing an income tax, then that income tax law has to come be enacted by the parliament if it is union government, and if it is a state government tax, then that legislation has to be basically backed by or the legislation should come from the legislative assembly of the state. So so Article 265 says no tax shall be levied or collected except by the authority of the law, and uh, the powers are distributed among the center and the state, that is described in the 7th schedule of the Constitution. Now, coming to the taxes of the union government, if you see the entries in the union list, then the entries starting from 82 to 92. So from entries in the union list starting from 82 to 92. That means 10 articles, 10 entries in the union list talk about the taxing power of the union government. And what are those taxation powers of the union government? Taxes on income other than agricultural income, and duties of customs, including export duties. So customs means basically the tax imposed on the export and import, excluding export duties. Now, duties of the excise on tobacco and other goods manufactured produced in India, except alcoholic liquors for human consumption, because these are collected by the state government. Then opium, Indian hemp, and other narcotic drugs and narcotic, but including medicinal and toilet preparation containing alcohol or any substance includes in subparagraph B of this entry. So remember, duties of excise on tobacco and other goods manufactured or produced in India is imposed by the union government, but alcohol and other things are not imposed by the union government because these are going to the state government. Now, corporation tax is collected by the union government. Now, taxes on capital value of the assets exclusive of the agricultural land of individuals and companies, taxes on the capital of the companies. Now, estate duty in respect of property other than agricultural land. Remember, so if you see Article 82, then you see Article 86 and Article 87, wherever agriculture income or agriculture property is mentioned, those are not collected by the union government; those are given to the state government. But other properties are taxed by the union government. Then duties in respect of succession to property other than agricultural land. Similarly, terminal taxes on goods or passengers carried by railway, sea or air, taxes on railway fares and freights, then taxes other than stamp duties on transaction in stock exchanges and future markets, rates of stamp duty in respect of bills of exchanges, checks, promissory notes, bills of lending, letters of credit, then policies of insurance, transfer of shares, debentures, then proxies and receipts, then taxes on sales or purchase of the newspaper and on advertisements published therein, taxes on the sales or purchase of other than newspaper where such sales or purchase takes place in the course of interstate trade, then taxes on the consignment of goods and taxes on services. So remember this 92C entry came in the year 1994 when service tax was imposed for the first time. Because before 1994 we did not have any service tax. So remember here, I have mixed up both direct and indirect taxes, but just remember that in the seventh schedule of the Constitution of India, we have union list, state list, and concurrent list. And now within that, if you look at the union list, then there are different entries starting from 82 to 92. We have all the taxes of the union government. That includes both direct and indirect. That means income tax other than agriculture, corporation tax, and then custom duty. Then we have excise duty other than alcohol and all the other commodities. Similarly, there are many other indirect taxes that is mentioned between entry 82 to 92. So these are the taxation power of the union government. Now, if you look at when you try to understand the receipt of the union government in a very simple manner, we should remember this picture. So we can say that broadly all the receipts are of two types. One is revenue and other is capital. So many times people think that basically people say that what are the revenue sources of the union government? I think that is not actually a right terminology that should be used. So that's if you say receipt, that is the most appropriate because this includes both revenue receipt as well as capital receipts. Now, when we say revenue receipt, what is the difference between revenue receipts and capital receipts? So when we say revenue receipt, the receipts which are recurring in nature. Time and again, the government can collect these receipts. So, for example, taxes. You are paying almost every day income tax. You are paying indirect taxes. So these are all the receipts which are recurring in nature. But in some capital receipt, these are non-recurring in nature. Basically, borrowing. Government doesn't borrow every day. Similarly, government cannot sell the properties every day. So these are coming once in a while. So the receipts which are recurring in nature are called revenue receipts, and the receipts which are non-recurring in nature are called capital receipts. Now, revenue receipts are of two types. One is tax receipts and other is non-tax receipts. Now, within tax receipts, we have direct tax and we have indirect tax. So that we have already discussed. Now, coming to the capital receipts, we have debt capital and non-debt capital. That means basically borrowing and non-borrowing. Now, within debt capital, we have internal borrowing and we have external borrowing. And in case of non-debt capital receipts, we have basically the disinvestment proceeds. Now, since we are discussing the debt, Now, when we say internal debt, basically we are borrowing from the domestic market. And say we can borrow from NABARD, then you can borrow from the public accounts like say PPF, Public Provident Fund is managed by the Government of India. So Government of India can borrow from that Provident Fund. Similar government can borrow from LIC, and similar external sources, government can borrow from external sources. Government can go to World Bank, and government can go to Asian Development Bank, or government has now recently set up BRICS Bank. So from different sources, it can borrow. That is from external sources. So this is the broad structure of the receipts of the union government. Now, coming to the real picture, no, this is the budget of 2020-21. So I request the viewers to go to the India Budget website and see this, so that you get a real feel of the budget or the sources of the receipt of the union government. Now, as per the classification that I showed you in the previous slide, this slide, now we should see here. Now, in case of revenue receipts, so you can see broad heading is revenue receipt. Then we have within that we have tax revenue, we have non-tax revenue. Then we have capital receipts, within which we have debt capital and we have non-debt capital. Now, coming to the revenue receipts, we have tax revenue, and within tax revenue, as I told you earlier, we have direct taxes and we have indirect taxes. Now, in direct taxes, we have corporation tax, we have taxes on income, and then we have wealth tax. But remember, the wealth tax has been abolished from 2017-18. Now you see this 41 crore for the year 2018-19, because that could be say the arrears that is collected for the previous years. But you see from 2019-20, we do not see any entries under the wealth tax. So in case of direct tax, we have corporation tax, we have taxes on income. So these are actually the two tax, and direct taxes. Now in case of indirect taxes, we have custom duty, then we have union excise duty, and we have service tax. Now again, service tax has been abolished. Now we have GST, basically goods and service tax. Now again, goods and services tax are central goods and service tax, then integrated goods and service tax, basically on the interstate trade. That the tax is collected by the union government, that is IGST, and then GST compensation cess. I told you earlier that government is collecting a GST compensation cess, and then taxes of the union territories. These are the receipts of the union government. Now I should repeat. Now within tax revenue, we have corporation tax, basically direct tax, within which you have corporation tax and taxes on income, and wealth tax has been abolished. Now, in case of indirect taxes, you have custom duty. Custom duty is basically the tax imposed on the export and import of the commodities. And now we have union excise duty. Now, what is union excise duty? Union excise duty is basically a tax on the production. And now it is then we had service tax, which was imposed for the first time in 1994, and only three taxes were three services were taxed for the first time in 1994. That is basically we had telephone, then we had brokerage, and then we had non-life insurance. So three services were taxed for the first time. Then we have now recently implemented goods and service tax, and within that we have because we have state GST, we have central GST. So obviously the central government will collect the central GST, and then IGST, integrated goods and service tax, that is basically imposed on the interstate trade, and the GST compensation cess, and then the taxes of the union territories, because that all the expenditure obligation of the union territories basically are on the union government. So these are the tax receipts of the union government. Now coming to the non-tax receipts, non-tax revenue receipt, we have interest receipts, we have dividend and profits, then we have external grants, and then we have other non-tax revenue, then receipts of the union territories. So these are basically the major non-tax revenues, and then see there are different fines and fees under the non-tax revenue, and that's this will come under the other non-tax revenue, and those are quite a few, quite a large amount. That's you look at the numbers. So interest receipt is not that big number. Then dividends and profits, basically we have a lot of public sector undertakings. Then we have RBI pays a lot of dividends to the government of India. Similarly, all the state owned banks also pay dividend to the government. Then other than that, Government of India also gets different grants from different sources. Of course, it is very less amount, only 1812 crore no, is expected to be received in 2021, and all the receipts of the Union government. Of course, then other non-tax revenue, these are all basically fines and fees. Whenever you are availing some service from the Union government, then you have to pay some fee, and that is quite a large amount. So now if you see the amount of tax revenue and non-tax revenue, then obviously the tax revenue is larger than the non-tax revenue. Similarly, if you look at the direct tax and indirect taxes, then definitely direct taxes are contributing actually more than the indirect taxes. And within direct taxes, then the corporation tax is more than the income tax, individual income tax. So non-tax revenue is definitely less than the direct taxes. Yes, the than the tax revenue. Then we have the capital receipts. So I told you that receipts are of two types. One is the revenue receipt, another is capital receipt. Within revenue, we discuss the tax revenue, we discuss the non-tax revenue. Within tax revenue, we discuss the direct tax, and we discuss the indirect taxes. Now we are going to discuss the capital receipts. And I told you in the beginning that capital receipts are of two types. One is debt capital, and another is non-debt capital. That means when we say debt capital, these are basically the borrowings. And when we say non-debt capital, within that we have recovery of loans and advances. Remember, here is the difference. When you are collecting the principal amount, that comes under the capital receipts. But when you collect the interest receipt, that goes to the non-tax revenue. That is the difference one should remember. The interest receipts goes to the non-tax revenue, but when you collect the principal amount, that goes to the recovery of loans and advances. That is basically coming under the non-debt capital receipts. And then we have all the disinvestment receipts. Now you know that Government of India has been is discussing to basically privatize or sell a part of the shares of some public sector undertaking. So the receipt that is received from this disinvestment process is categorized as non-debt capital receipts. Now why this capital? Because you cannot divest the share of a company frequently. Once you sold means that is gone. So that is it comes once in a while, and every year government doesn't divest the share of public sector undertakings. And other than that, we have also debt receipt. That means basically borrowing. And I told you that this borrowing could be internal, this could be also from external sources. Okay, so now if you look at the capital receipts, the non-debt capital receipt is lesser than the debt capital receipt. That means we borrow more than what we recover from the loans that we had given, and then what we sell on disinvestment, what the shares that is sold from the public sector undertakings. Now, if you want to know the the share of different sources of receipt in the total receipt of the Union government, then this is the source. That means the yellow bar, the yellow portion of the bars show the net centers tax revenue. So suppose if you look at the budget estimate of 2020-21, the Union government had roughly 30 lakh crores budget, and now within that, if you look at the revenue sources, then government expects that about 16.36 lakh crore will be mobilized from different taxes, and then non-tax revenue about 3.85, or we can say 4. So 16 plus 4 is about 20 crores coming from tax and non-tax resources. And then we have non-debt capital receipts, that is about 2.25 crore. That is basically coming from the recovery of loans, and then we have disinvestment proceeds. So total, if you see the non-borrowing receipts, which includes the tax, then we have non-tax, and then we have the disinvestment proceeds, then it comes about 22.5 or 20 yeah, about a little more than 22.5 crore out of that 30 crores budget, 30 lakh crore, 30 lakh crore budget. So this is the basically in a nutshell the receipts of the union government or the center that is used. Now, so this is all about the sources of receipt of the union government. And now, with this, we conclude today's discussion on the sources spreadsheet. I hope this video will be very much useful for the students and for the people who are preparing for competitive examinations, particularly for UPSC or for different state public service commission or for Indian economic service examination. If you liked my video, please like the video and share among your friends, and also do not forget to subscribe my channel. Thank you both. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you.